Welcome back to episode 2 of the Refuse Ordinary podcast. My name's Tamara and I will be your host for today, and with me I've got Ryan Kelly, a leader at the School of Transformation. Today we're going to be talking about developing a real faith. So Ryan, how did you develop your faith? How did you get to a place of having genuine faith?
Gosh, it's definitely been a road and a journey for me. Thank you for the question. It's a good question, by the way. I grew up in religion. I grew up in different religions, I should say. I was baptized Catholic as a baby, or as a young toddler, and then my parents were divorced at an early age. My mom was remarried. My stepdad was Lutheran, so I went through 2 years of classes to become Lutheran. And my whole childhood, I grew up with this idea that God was real, that God existed. Yeah. But I never really had an actual experience with God. Never really knew him personally, didn't have a connection with him. And it wasn't until I was about 16, I was my junior year of high school, that a friend of mine invited me to his youth group. Okay. And it was just a kind of a charismatic, non-denominational Christian church, and so I go there, and it was just kids my age leading worship, and there was a youth group, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was different than anything I'd ever experienced before. And all of a sudden, it really I went from kind of growing up with this idea that God's some distant person way out there that hope if I live my life and I do good enough, then I'll make it to heaven one day. Or then all of a sudden my eyes were open, this is actually real. Okay. And it took me seeing people my age experiencing God, worshiping God, loving God. Yeah. To pique my curiosity from just an idea into like a pursuit. And so that kind of started the course of my life up until this point of I'm going to pursue Jesus. I encountered Jesus that night, and I haven't turned back since. Okay. And so really it took me discovering Jesus, the real Jesus, through people, through worship, through reading the Bible, just discovering him and what he says, and the words, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yeah. And it took me just encountering Jesus personally one-on-one to where it became real in my life. It wasn't just this religion, this thing that sought to modify my behavior. Right. Because we can fall into systems, and we can do systems so well where it's just, for me, it was all about behavior modification. Yeah. If I do this, then I get out of jail free, Yeah, yeah. And I go to heaven one day, hopefully. But it's, but it wasn't. It was very powerless in my life. Yeah. And so even though I would have said I was a Christian and I believed in God, there was a lot of things that were still controlling me, things still ruling my life. Yeah. And so I really didn't have a faith that I could stand on. Right. Because I would kind of go wherever the movement was leading me, and it wasn't until I actually encountered Jesus and started to pursue him and what his truth was that my faith started to grow. Okay. And I started to encounter truth. I started to encounter Jesus face to face, and all of a sudden I started developing a faith that even when hardships came and when difficulties came, because they come for all of us. Yeah. I was actually able to stand strong and say, I still love you, Jesus. Yeah. I still love you. You're still good. That's so good. Yeah. That's so good.
So with that, that reminds me a little bit of where I was at prior to coming here, actually. Okay. And I went through a time where, with a lot of hard things in my life, and with sickness stuff and just stuff that was kind of shaking up my life big time, I came to a point where I was very much done with cliche Christianity. Yeah. And I was there's either I want something real or I can't do this. I was kind of at a place where I think that it goes a little bit with this place where I found myself being there's got to be more than this. And maybe people can relate of if you've maybe been a Christian for a while or grown up in the system of church and knowing the rules and knowing how to be a Christian, but kind of getting to a point of this feels kind of fruitless, and I hope that there's more, but I don't know how to get there. What is your take on that and dealing with that?
Yeah, I think that's a common thing that people deal with is there more than this? Is this all that there is? Yeah. And as I think about that question, I actually think there's it's kind of twofold, in that by itself, that question actually can be a really good thing, to just describe to yourself, hey, is there more than this? Like, we shouldn't get to a point where we feel like we've arrived, that there's no more to discover and learn. I think that question exists and it piques our curiosity. It keeps us pursuing.
Yeah.
But there's also the time in your life where that question comes from a place of desperation or despair and just feeling hopeless, feeling lost. And I think that's more what you're bringing up, is just the, what do you do when you feel like, man, is there more than this? My life doesn't have evidence. Jesus, are you actually real?
Right.
There was a point in my life, actually, probably 10 or so years ago, where I was just going through some rough things, and I would just be outside in the night looking at the stars. Just, God, are you real? Are you there?
Yeah.
And I realized that in that time of my life, my Christianity, it wasn't really about Him. It was about me. It's about my struggles.
Right.
Everything, my eyes were all focused on me and what I was going through. So if we take a look at that question, what do you do when you feel that way? And for me, it really is. It's the one foot in front of the next. It's the one. We sometimes despise small beginnings. We want everything all at once, especially in our culture that we live in. But really, it's the little things. It's the little choices, day by day, moment by moment. I heard a great quote one time that says, "Little by little, a little becomes a lot." Okay. And so, when you pursue the little truth after little truth, like it builds. And it builds, and it starts to have like this snowball effect, where it starts to become something that's real in your life. It starts to pull you from the hopelessness or is there actually more than this, into you start to see those good choices and the fruit of those good choices and the fruit of pursuing them, even if it's just a moment. Like, Jesus, I'm going to choose you right now. You start to see those kind of build upon each other, where all of a sudden, a year later, you're like, oh, I'm not even the same person that I was a year ago.
Yeah, so it's like a continual making the right choice.
Yeah.
Step towards Jesus.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's so good. With that, I realized, like, the story in the Gospels about the scattered seed. That with this topic, I was thinking about that, and how that can relate to us, where we find ourselves either being this like shallow soil where roots aren't able to, like, we can't grow roots, and our faith just gets pretty much taken from us when hardships come, or being like where the thorns come and choke out your faith, because you're just letting like the worries of this life overtake you, and then there's the good soil that obviously produces fruit. And so is that something, what can we do to like be that good soil and let faith like take root in our lives, instead of, because I feel like the whole thorns of this world choking out our faith isn't, it won't just happen. Like it'll just be gradual, and then suddenly you'll realize that you're so much further from where you thought you were going to be. Yeah. And so what's your take on that, and how that relates to us?
Gosh, good questions today, Tamara. Come on. Yeah, it's a great parable, Matthew 13. It's one of the accounts. And I think we can all find ourselves at different points relating to the process of the seed and where you're at in your own journey and your own Christianity. And are you the person, obviously our goal is to be the person that receives the word and it produces fruit in our life to the 100-fold, right? Yeah. That Jesus says. And we want to get there. We're, and Jesus is talking about that. The word, it's basically the gospel message. It's the kingdom of God, the message. And so what are we doing to respond to that in our own life? And for sure, at times, I've definitely been that one that's being choked out by the worries and the cares and the money issues and the fears of life, and all these different things. And so, but I think really at the end of the day, it really comes back to the motive of your heart and why you're a Christian in the first place. Okay. And as you're asking those questions, I just was thinking about that was, are we coming into Christianity to serve ourselves? Yeah. Or are we coming in to being a Christian to serve Jesus? Okay. And I mean, to be a Christian really is to be a little Christ. Yeah. But a lot of us find ourselves in Christianity for different reasons. But if your motive is to say, Jesus, I'm entering into this with you because I want to serve you and I want to love you and I want you to be my king and to lead my life, then you're gonna begin to follow after him.
Yeah.
And so when those worries and those cares and those things that want to distract you and take you out, because it says in there too, the birds that come, it's like the devil comes to snatch things from you, and it doesn't want you to have this new life, doesn't want you to have joy, doesn't want you to have transformation, doesn't want you to have the things that Jesus comes to give. But the more that you pursue Jesus and really make him your focus, really make him your goal, I think it's just, again, that little by little, the day by day, you fall more and more in love with him. You stand stronger on the truth. Your foundation starts to just become even more firm, and your faith starts to build. You start to realize, man, he's real. He's good. He loves me. He's got a plan for my life. He wants to use me. And not only that, but when you enter into this thing, I say this thing, right? This Christianity. You have to have this understanding that my life is no longer my own. And with that comes the reality that we've been invited into a story that's beyond just ourselves.
Okay.
And so now we're part of Jesus' story.
Yeah.
And so that actually motivates me to then want to be the one that when I receive the word, I want this to have fruit in my life. I want this to actually do something.
Right.
And sometimes it means looking at myself and going, man, okay, I'm confused there. I don't understand this. Why did you say this, Jesus? That's hard to do. How do I actually do that?
Yeah.
And I've had to wrestle through lots of things in my own life of these the things that Jesus introduces and brings, right? But it's like, I want to serve you, Jesus.
Yeah.
And so the goal of my heart is I want to love you. Yeah. And so I'm going to follow you.
Yeah. That's so good. That's a whole like perspective shift of like, oh, I just have to like battle off all this stuff, but actually switching to like, hey, my goal is to serve Jesus no matter what. Yeah. And so it'll be those little choices. That's so good. So you've probably covered a lot of this, but would you have any final words of advice for people that are finding themselves a little stuck or just really looking for that extra encouragement to pursue a faith that is real amidst life happening?
Yeah. First off, you're not alone. Like, the Bible says the rain falls on the just and the unjust. We're all hit by something throughout life. We're all going to endure things. And, with that said, there's a lot of comfort knowing you're not alone. You're not the only person that's going to struggle. You're not the only person that's going to have to deal with difficulty. Yeah. But with that, how much better is it to have an actual faith that you can rely on, that actually sees you through to the end, where it's not just a religion that's powerless. You have this powerful relationship with Jesus, where it's no longer you that's living, but he's actually living inside of you. Now the two of you together, it's like this partnership. We can go out and change the world together. And so it just allow yourself, one, to struggle, to not have everything together, to admit that you need help. And if you have a faith that hasn't worked, if you have a Christianity that hasn't produced fruit, the fruit that you want, the fruit that you see in people around you, the fruit that Jesus wants you to have, then today's your day. It's not too late for you. You can still choose to go forward right now. And it really is, like I said before, it's the one choice at a time. It's the one day, the one decision. That's going to lead to bigger and bigger victories. And just before you know it, you're just going to be walking in power. You're going to be walking in love. You're going to be a little Jesus on this earth. And it's going to be really good. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you guys all for tuning in today. If you have felt encouraged or would like to take those steps into developing a genuine faith, please comment, please share this live stream, and leave us a rating and review in the podcast. We'll be back next week on the topic of vision. Thank you so much for joining us at Refuse Ordinary. I hope that it was both challenging and inspiring in your walk with Jesus. If you have any questions at all, please comment below. We would love to hear from you. I have 3 different ways in which you can get involved at the School of Transformation. First, we have our flagship full-time in-person school right here in beautiful Oroville, California. Next, I have School of Transformation Light, which offers part-time modules, in-person and online on Sunday mornings. Last but not least, I have School of Transformation Light on the Move,
which distills all the topics and teachings of the school into a video series, which means that you can watch it wherever you are. This is going to be launching very soon. If you have any questions or would like more information on any of these options for school, please head to transformationschool.org.